Joe Biden totally effed us. That, a quote from a Kamala Harris official in a new book that paints a damning picture of how far the White House went to hide his decline.
Oh, really?
We're too strong to participate in sports, and yet we are not strong enough to be in the military.
I mean, I remember the line. Yeah, they're
never called Nazis fine people.
He said there were very fine people on both sides,
except the neo-Nazis and white nationalists, who should be condemned totally.
He said that.
You can't be serious.
Welcome back, everybody. Dronetek here, and as usual, I have 3 clips. All 3 of them today, I promise, are just gonna boggle your mind. We have a liberal comedian that still somehow believes the very fine people hoax. We have a woke general that gets called out live on the Bill Maher show. And we have Phillip from CNN joining the ranks of fake journalists that are trying to rewrite history about the fact the media played a crucial part in the whole Biden decline cover-up. We'll take a look at what she's saying now versus what she said then.
Donald Trump dumped food into a fish pond after Shinzo Abe did. Why are you trying to make that a negative story?
I don't even know what that
it was like,
talking about there.
It's all of these hoaxes. The very fine people hoax.
I mean, I remember the line. Yeah, they're
never called Nazis fine people.
He said there were very fine people on both sides,
except the neo-Nazis and white nationalists, who should be condemned totally.
He said that.
Holy shit, brother! It is.
I don't live in your bubble, man. You don't
live in the fucking news, dude. A human.
No, I just don't have your. I don't have your.
No,
obsessions.
Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people, bro. It's been almost 10 years, and you still think he did. That's what's fucked up.
I didn't say I think he did. I just don't know what you're talking about because I don't like. I don't listen to your shit.
It's not about listening to my shit, bro. It's reading the news. It's fact checking, bro. I got Snopes for you. They're not a conservative publication. Even Snopes was like, guys, stop saying this.
I don't know why you're shouting at me. I was just asking you to explain.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
So yeah, just wild that something I was talking about right after it happened, literally right after that press conference, I did a video talking about how the media was cutting that part out and they were going to make an issue of it, which they did. It lasted, 10 years now, and it really just shows the power of the drive-by media. They do their damage, they speed off, and what you have is long-lasting effects from people who are victims of that drive-by. All right, now moving on to former General McChrystal appearing on Bill Maher, and this one just blows my mind because this guy has clearly gone to one too many DEI trainings.
But the reality is it's a team, and that team that does it is communicators and logisticians, intelligence professionals, and it's people of every age, of every sex, of every gender. If someone is transgender, no one cares. They want to get the job done right. And so we sometimes make it two-dimensional in the idea that you've got to be a certain profile to be a warrior. And I just have a different view of the military than Secretary Hegseth does in that regard. I think we really are about what best defends us. And I think what best defends us is everybody.
So, I say this is exactly why these guys wanted to take over. Because they think, first of all, I do find it hard to believe that nobody in the military has a problem with trans people in the military. Is that what you're saying?
No, I certainly would never speak for everybody in the military. I'm sure some do.
You literally just did.
The reality is,
it's the same thing as what goes on in women's locker rooms. There are some places people just don't want a penis. There are...
There are always superficial things that even at the time caused me to roll my eyes a bit. But the reality is there was a great service member on TV the other day who said, we're too strong to participate in sports, and yet we are not strong enough to be in the military. And that's the basic contradiction here. I think
what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
No, I do not understand what the supposed contradiction is. And this quote that General McChrystal apparently thinks is so profound is actually just stupid. You'll notice that when he said they are too strong for sports, he left out that they're too strong for women's sports, which they absolutely undeniably are. And yes, I do think that gender dysphoria is a mental illness and should not be in the military. In fact, there is a long list of medical conditions that will keep you out of the military. He's just another one of these people who's been to one too many of these struggle session brainwashings, to the point he has abandoned objective reality and replaced it with a far-left ideological belief system. All right, now on to Abby Phillip, who is another Weasley CNN host who was trying to deflect the blame for the Biden decline cover-up onto Democrats in order to absolve themselves from accountability. But I'm afraid that we're not going to let them do that.
Of how far the White House went to hide his decline. Among the revelations from Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book, Biden's team hid him from his staff and even members of his cabinet. They considered that he may need a wheelchair in the future and contradicted warnings from his doctor. And Biden didn't recognize George Clooney, one of his longtime supporters, and of course, one of the most famous movie stars and faces on the planet. But as the scandal branches grow, what about the people who have political runways, the Pete Buttigiegs of the world, hitting a Midwest tour, Kamala Harris thinking about a run for California governor? Will and should their futures be impacted by this scandal?
It's a question I should be asking you.
Will and should Abby Phillip's future be impacted by the fact she helped Joe Biden to cover up his obvious decline?
I'm not that lucky.
Distorting the 2024 election. That's tonight on Newsnight.
Oh yes, distorting. What are the Republicans distorting with?
Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. The November choice is between two old men. We know that. But tonight I want to talk about the Joe Biden that Republicans want you to see and the pipeline of videos that aren't telling the full truth. Now, those videos are probably right now clogging the public consciousness as Americans start to think about
clogging
their
the
votes.
public consciousness.
The RNC wants to weaponize questions around Biden's age. And the follow-up to that question is he mentally fit enough to do the job again? It's a question that Donald Trump hopes is on voters' minds.
I think you should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it.
The latest video shoving this question in voters' faces is this one from a star-studded fundraiser a couple days ago. President Biden and former President Obama on stage waving to this crowd, and then there's a 6-second pause, and then a walk off the stage. The New York Post screamed, "Freeze up." The White House fired back, accusing the conservative outlet of wildly misinterpreting what happened. It's far from the only example of this push-pull between what the president is seen and heard doing and how Republicans and conservative news allies are labeling what he's seen and heard doing. Now, you don't have to scroll too far down on the RNC's research account to find posts winking and nodding that Biden isn't all there. Posts like this one, showing Biden at the G7 summit wandering around. Now, the RNC would have you believe that this was all aimlessly. The New York Post saw the video and put the stills on the front page. Meanderer in chief. The problem is, that is also wildly misleading. Biden wasn't staring off into the distance like a puppy distracted by a bird. He was watching a diving demonstration.
So yes, the question remains, will Abby Phillip and her cohorts have their futures impacted by the fact they lied to the country for 4 years? Which is why you're now seeing them desperately try to weasel out of accountability, because otherwise they have absolutely no credibility and have no business doing this job. All right, folks, what do you all think? Let me know in the comments, and if you're still here, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I do post on a regular basis, both shorts and long form, so make sure to keep checking back for more. Who knows if YouTube will ever push my videos out to you, even as subscribers. So you got to make sure to keep checking back. Thanks a lot.